Good morning, Eswatini. It's Tuesday, it's 6 a.m. on this 25th day of the third month of the year 2025, the month of March, as we march towards wrapping it up. This is Kusile Breakfast Show, and it is in full swing again this morning, bringing you the conversations shaping the future. This morning, youth empowerment, economic liberation, as well as a vision for Africa. A vision for Africa where young entrepreneurs lead the charge into a prosperous future. Now, this is not just an aspiration, but it is a movement. Right now, Eswatini is playing host to a delegation from the African Youth Congress, and they're engaging with the Youth Chamber of Commerce and Industries, Eswatini, to find ways, or rather to forge new paths in entrepreneurship, industrialization, and land reform. At the heart of these discussions, the International Youth Summit on Land and Economic Liberation Freedom that will be in Harare. It is an event that is poised to redefine the role of youth in Africa's economic trajectory. Now, the big questions. So what does this visit mean for young Africans, for young people in Eswatini? What is the road ahead to the IYSOLEF 2025, that is the conference, as well as the big question, can youth-led initiatives really deliver economic transformation at scale? Joining me to answer that will be Bonke Matsa. He is the Vice President of the Youth Chamber of Commerce Industries in Eswatini. He's going to be alongside a delegate from the African Youth Congress. And then on our second hour at 7:30, we wake up to quality this morning. That is at least the theme that premises our conversation with Eswatini Meat Industries on standards, traceability, and global recognition. Quality in production, quality in standards, and quality on your plate. Eswatini Meat Industries has long positioned itself as a leader in the region's meat industry, with clients from Norway visiting. International traceability standards are in place and a slew of quality awards under their belt. Now, the company is setting benchmarks that go beyond Eswatini's borders. But what does that farm to fork really mean for consumers? Because that is what they call it, farm to fork. What does that really mean for you as a consumer, as well as the international consumers? Because that is exactly the path that they are headed. And how is the Imbiveni meat market ensuring that high quality meat products remain accessible, not just to the people internationally, but to Gogo at Ndubazi in the Shiselweni region, or Gogo Gahelehele? Joining me to unpack it all is going to be Nonsekelo Dlamini. She's the marketing officer at Eswatini Meat Industries. The show is set, the table is laid, and we are going to get into it on the program today. We do have our per usual schedule in terms of our local news, as well as the leading news from English to our indigenous language that made the headlines yesterday, breaking into today, of course, as well as a little glimpse into what is happening internationally, the major leading headlines there. And speaking of major leading headlines, what are some of those this morning across our major newspapers? Let's look at that. All right, let's kick things off by looking at the leading news headlines. Good times of Eswatini. Let's start with the front page. All right, this is the front page, the Times of Eswatini, Tuesday, the 25th of March. The big story, golden opportunity or Ponzi. It is posed as a question. Another investment scheme promises limitless returns. Agents recruiting investors for US-based scooter rental company. Red flag, as the FSRA has no knowledge of this entity. Another one, rhino kills ranger at game reserve. On those graphics, we see a rhino on the left, and we see a game ranger on the right, and Big Game Parks Ranger, Sergeant Siabonga Magongo. He's 44 years of age, and he's from Tikuba. He was gored and killed by a white rhino. He was guarding at Mkaya Game Reserve on Saturday. However, the rhino in the picture is not the one that killed Magongo. The Times of Eswatini wants to extend that disclaimer. On another one, unions say no to pension funds measure, and abandoned calabash, Tinyanga warn of dangers. And the last one, why the Prime Minister did not name Cabal. We'll look at the back end of this publication, and these are the leading sports headlines. Hosting 2 away games in 1 week results in 2 million emalangeni Mbombela bill for the EFA. That is a lot of money. Eswatini delegation spends almost a week in South Africa for back-to-back World Cup qualifiers. And they would rest easier if the Confederation of African Football were to recognize Somhlolo National Stadium as a suitable venue. Another story, Benny McCarthy slams ref after first Kenya defeat. And Manzini Wanderers case, the PLE attorneys withdraw in a shocking turn of events. MLK Ndlangamandla attorneys have withdrawn their services as the attorneys of record for the Premier League of Eswatini. Move along, we look at the Eswatini Daily News, and these are the front page headlines this morning. The top story, Cabal won't stop us from delivering service to Emaswati. That is according to the Premier of the land, Russell Miso Dlamini. In this story, Prime Minister Russell Miso Dlamini strongly affirmed that the existence of cabals will not stop him from delivering service to the nation. This message was communicated by the Prime Minister in a report with responses to the Senate Portfolio Committee, which had been asked during the debate of Private and Cabinet Office 2025-2026 financial year's budget. On another one, secure food sovereignty for Eswatini, Minister Chauka urges new e-weight board. The last one, new EFIC Director General commits to fight financial crime. The back end of this publication, these are the leading sports headlines. Eswatini Daily News this Tuesday. Another twist in Wanderers' case as the PLE lawyers withdraw. The PLE has 10 days to get new lawyers, informed the court after MLK Ndlangamandla attorneys withdrew their services. And on another one, the league returns with blockbuster matches. That is in our domestic league, the Premier League, Lapha ekhaya. And from the international front, Juventus roll the dice after Mortar flop. And that's it this morning. We'll go for a quick ad break, and when we return, we shall look at our local news from yesterday, getting into today. Don't go anywhere.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Maswahla mahle siphindze sinivusele sinamukele ehlelweni solo siqhubeka nalo kehlelo Kusile breakfast show lomhla ekseni kungeLesibili ngesikhathi sitawutfokotela nathi tindzaba tesiswati. Indvuna yelitiko letekulima umhlonishwa Amandla Chauka seyinikete libandla lebacondzisi ka-Eswatini Water and Agriculture Development Enterprise Umsebenzi-ke wekuqhuba nekucetsisa imisebenzi lemikhulu kutekulima kude litiko likhona ekuqinisekisa umgomo walo ukuthi live liba nekudla lokwanele. Indvuna ikuvete loku uma yetfula ngalokusemtsetfweni libandla lelisha lebacondzisi balenkampani lesihlalo walo kunguNomusa Dlamini.
Kulima umhlonishwa Amandla Chauka ilethwe somsebenzi wekuthi lidlale indzima yalo kute litiko lifeze tinsika letintsatfu temgomo walo yokuthi kwakheke umnotfo kutekulima kwenabiswe lusito lwahulumende kanye nekuthi litiko libe nekudla lokwanele.
Kwekucala nje sine project lenkulu ngalangendansi lesithi ngilusip 2. Le project le ifinance ngabe iyaphela lo nyaka. Kodwa ke ngenxa yetimali sasikatholi imali letanele ukuthi iphele. Kodwa ke siyitholile imali enganga just over 200 million ku budget lo nyaka. Umsebenzi webhodi ke is to make sure ukuthi siya accelerator loku implement kwale project. Lenye ke i-project letawucala lo nyaka lesesitholile i-funding yayo kuthiwa i-SAPEM. Sitawuzama ukusita abalimi ikakhulu abancane ukuthi bakhone kuphakamisa umkhicito, bakhone nokuthengisa umkhicito wabo ngendlela efanele, futhi ke bese bakhona nokuthi bathole lokutawukwenda isandla siye enhloko kuphele kuphula. Live lakangwane ke linenkinga yelusha. Cishe 58% abantu labasha abasebenzi. Siphakamiseke lihlelo lelithi sicela ukuthi lolusha silusukele nje silulekelele ukuthi likhona ukuthola imisebenzi.
Asethula inkulumo yakhe esihlalo waleli bandla Nomsa Dlamini lowake waba ngu-Chief Economist etiko letekuhlela umnotfo ubongelele libandla ngekwethenjwa ngalomsebenzi wathi batawuthatha ngatoto timbili.
Singathembisa kwekuthi sikuvile futhi sitawutimisela kwenta lo msebenzi sibambisane nelitiko, sibambisane nawe ndvuna, sibambisane na PS and sisebenzisane nababe sithole lombekile ukuthi abuke lenkampani.
Leli bandla lebacondzisi lelibekwe yindvuna kubheke ukuthi libe sehhovisini isikhathi lesingangeminyaka lemithatfu. Leli bandla linemalunga alishumi lafaka ekhatsi mabhalane lomkhulu etiko letekulima Sydney Smelane, Moses Siyaya, Busangaya Masina nemphathi waka Ewade Samson Sithole kubala kulamanye emalunga. Etindzabeni kubika nothi lesithole ngenasonto Mlangeni sisembabane.
Indvuna litiko letemafa umhlonishwa Neil Reichenberg setfule ngalokusemtsetfweni babhekile mathebula kutsi-ke sengumcondzisi wenkampani yahulumende eSwatini Financial Intelligence Unit. Indvuna ithi lolu phiko lolu lubaluleke kakhulu ngobe luhlangothi lwemali kuleli lolutawukhona kubuyisa sitfunti seluhlangothi lwemali i-financial sector kanye-ke nekuvikela kushushumbiswa kwemali lapha eveni. Indvuna yetfule lo mphathi emahhovisini alenkampani embabane.
Le nkampani yahulumende eSwatini Financial Intelligence Unit luhlangothi loluniketwa umsebenzi wekuhlolisisa ukuthi luhlangothi lwemali eSwatini luphephile ngendlela yokuthi kubede bucala lokufaka ekhathi kushushumbiswa kwemali kanye nekuthi imali isebenziswe kusekela tikhwebula sikhuni. Indvuna yelitiko letemafa umhlonishwa Neil Reichenberg ithi-ke lo mphathi lomusha wetfesa umsebenzi wekuthi kubuyiswe sitfundi seluhlangothi lwemali lapha eveni njengobe kuyintfo letsinta kuphepha kwelive.
This appointment marks a significant milestone in our ongoing efforts to strengthen the country's governance of anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing, to secure financial system and to drive the economic growth agenda.
Indvuna ithi lo mphathi lomusha utawubhekeka ukuthi ekusebenteni kwakhe ayihambise embili indzaba yokusebentela ebaleni, kusebenta ngenhlonipho kanye nekugcina tintfo, pheceleti confidentiality, nekusebenta-ke ngalokusezingeni lisetulu. Indvuna ithi babhekile mathebula unemakhono neticu letitawusita kutfutfukisa le nkampani kude ikhone kufeza umgomo wekuthi leSwatini lihambisane nemigomo yemhlaba kuleti temali.
As you will know, Honourable Minister, we're also responsible for the designated non-financial businesses and professionals. In that respect, Minister will review and strengthen our regulatory and supervisory tools.
Asabeka inkulumo yakhe Director General Babhekile Mathebula uthi-ke uyatibophelela ekuthenini kuliwe nebucala kulolu hlangothi lwemali lokhu bucala bekushushumbiswa kwemali. Uthi utibophelele ekuqinisekiseni ibudlelwano naleminye imikhono yahulumende lefaka ekhathi leyo lelwa nebucala. Uthi likhono labo lekuhlolisisa nekupota litawusita ukuthi kwakhiwe kuphindze kuqiniswe imithetho ikakhulu letawuvikela bucala balolu hlobo. Uthi batewenabisa lwati ikakhulu kulabo labasebenta ngemthetho kute kusebenziswe tinhlelo letitsite kulwa nalobucala. Indvuna yetemafa ivetile kutsi kumpuntshuka ngalokungekho emtsetfweni kwemininingwane loke kwenteka ngaphambilini ngeke kuphindze kwenteke ngobe sekunetinhlelo leticinile letivikela imininingwane yebantfu. Etindzabeni kubika Sondomlangeni nginaThemba Shabangu eMbabane.
Umcondzisi wetekulima etiko letekulima Nelson Mavuso uthi noma umgundzatshani bewuhlasele etindzaweni letiningi tindlela ketekulwana letibungu litiko lebelitikhiphile tisebentile. Mavuso uthi litiko litivakashele cishe nje tonke tindzawo lebetikatse tihlaselwe ngumgundzatshani lapho khona-ke bathole ukuthi letibungu balimi bakhonile kudincoba.
Balimi bakuleli etindzaweni letahlukene kufaka ekhatsi cishe kuto tonke tifundza telive laKangwane bebabhekene nekuphetfuka kwemgundzatshani lokwaveta-ke kwesaba lokukhulu nekwetfuka kubalimi njengoba live lisemkhankasweni wekuthi balimi bakhicite kudla lokwanele. Litiko letekulima lakhipha-ke ticondziso ngalesimo. Umcondzisi welitiko letekulima Nelson Mavuso uthi-ke lo mgundzatshani wafika wakhandza kutsi ummbila sewusesigabeni sekuvutfwa lokwente-ke ukuthi kungabi nemthelela lombi kakhulu.
Letiningi tindzawo bekuhamba director Gcoba hamba ubuka abonisane nebalimi sikukhandzile kwehla kwagcina kuncane. Lengaphindze ngikugcizelele noma inhlanhla yethu lesibe nayo eveni. Lesibungu sifike ema-crops lamaningi asafike ku-maturity stage. Njengoba sithi umgundzatshani kuhamba lephasi. Akusincancile isihlahla. Tihlahla tembila leta-affecteka kwaba ngiletincane singaphasi kwelitolo lobe kungedulu kwalapho wasenza kakhulu. We anticipate ukuthi kude i-reduction in yield in terms of maize production. And ikakhulu ngoba lama crops lamaningi abasayini maturity stage.
Mengameli wenhlangano yebalimi Matthias Mathebula uthi-ke sekude imibiko labayitfolako ngekuphetfuka kwaletibungu.
Kude lesikutholako kubalimi yalothi umgundatshani usekhona laletindzalo lebeti-affecteke kakhulu sekusenyanyalo siyacabanga lomfiso wendlulile noma-ke kwabangwa nalama-advices ahulumende ngoba lokunyenti vele besiku-aplya ezulwini bebekaseluleka kuthi asijonga ngemisi lenjani sedame dipite indlela sakwenda konke uhulumende lebekakwenda.
Litiko likhutsata abalimi ukuthi bakuyekele kusebentisa imithi lengagcina iba nemthelela lomubi kubantfu kanye netilwane. Tindzabeni kubika Sondomlangeni ngiseMbabane.
Tisebenti telitiko letekulima titawubuyela emahhovisini elitiko uma kuphela inyanga yeNdlovulenkhulu kulomnyaka losetule emahhovisini-ke lebekakhiwa. Kunembiko.
Umsebenzi kwekucala kwesibili sibonga ukuthi kuhambe ngale pace noma ngale speed velele besisibhekile. So by the end of this month March kufuna sibe siphumile sonke siletulu emahhovisi ethu. I-deadline lesitibekele yona ngumhla ka7 April kuthi mhla ka7 April onke ema-officers atawube sekaletulu. Ngingasho-ke ukuthi some of the offices already sekacalile kuphuma ukuthi enyukelele etulu ngesizathu sekuthi kunetinto letinye nje letistorishwako letingadzingi kokuthi size sibe khona. Sesitithathile-ke satenyusa sahamba nato sayotibeka le etulu sekutawumuva-ke lama-offices-ke ema-officers le content yama-office abo inyuswe ibuyiselwe le etulu. Siyabonga kakhulu sicabanga ukuthi umsebenzi wendeke kahle kakhulu and sifuna kusho ukuthi kulesimo nje lesikuso lesakhiwo nema-officers they are very happy. Sicabanga ukuthi kutabakhuthata kubafake umdlandla ekusebenteleni emahhovisi lahlobile nalesesimeni lesikahle. Kukhona-ke lema-improvements lakhona lawentekile lapha eTulu lafaka ikhathi ngokuthi bekude i-conference room yethu nje vele emehlo bekahlaba phasi beyincane siyikhulukhulisile senta yaba inkudlwana. Lokunye sifuna ku-improve ubudlelwane bethu na-FAO kube ne-fully fledged office yaka-FAO la kaNgwade. Nanidawukhumbula nje nga-October ingwenyama yafika yasicelela leyo mvume ku-Director General waka-FAO e-Italy awubavuma baba positive. So nyalo-ke sekufike la esimeni khona kufuna si-implemente letivumelwane tethu ukuze leli office litosebenza. Siba-accommodatile-ke nabo kule building yethu lese-renovatiwe sesivele siba-allocatile ema-office.
Iphalamende yakangwane ibonakala ihamba embili etindzabeni tekungashiyeli ngaphandle bomake nebantfu labakhubatekile ephalamende. Lokhu kulandzela kutsi emalunga ephalamende abe yingxenye ye-SADC plenary session lebekadze ibanjelwe eveni leZambia eminyakeni lophelile.
Ngemsombuluko emsebentini welusuku wendlu yetimphunga bosihlalo bemakomiti ematiko bebetfula endlini yetimphunga imibiko pheceleti portfolio committee reports emnyaka timali wahulumende wa 2025-2026 lapho kudzingidvwe kabanti umbiko we-SADC Parliament Forum lowetfulwe imphunga Isaac Magagula.
Sabeka ukuthi bomake nasenda nje i-example kuleya minyaka loyo ngempela lolandzela lo besiye kuwo besingakhuluma nga-14 wabomake labasebukhundleni noma labasephalamende, kodwa lo nyaka kube ne-quantum leap, quantum increase labayidumisa kakhulu.
Timphunga tibe setfola litfuba lekukhulumisa lo mbiko.
Dumisa kakhulu kule delegation lena yaka SADC PF Madam President lokuthi live nalibathumile bahambe ngema-resources elive bafike nalena labe baye khona basebente bangalali buthongo babuye ekhaya ba-establishe i-report eParliament.
Live laseSwatini lihambe embili endzabeni tabo gender nekuba inclusive in terms of marginalized groups nalaba disabled nebantfu labasha. Sachaza mengameli nekuthi eParliament sesinebantfu labasha labanengi kuyaqala futhi mengameli ukuthi sibe ne-youth lengaka eParliament.
Ngidumsela iParliament ngonyama leya kule mihlangano lenjengalena ifike ingakafiki khona intilongiselele ifike bese seyimelela kahle live. Siyadumisa, siyabonga, siyahalalisa nendondo ngathi sivile ukuthi ukhona i-award yabe siyatholakala yabe sesiyaphathwa kwabongelwa abakangwane baphenze babuyiselwa ukuthi bachubeke babambise SADC. Siyanibongela kakhulu, sibonga uhulumende kakhulu ukusekela le mihlangano. Honorable Minister.
Timphunga tibese-ke tiyayiphasisa le mibiko. Umbiko uhlanganiswe nguSonto Mlangeni, Nasimuva Shongwe naThemba Shabangu ePhalamende.
Umlawuli wetekuchumana i-Eswatini Communications Commission ucecesha abasakati labehlukene nalabasebenta-ke kutekuchumana ngetindlela tekusebenta kulolu hlangothi. Basiloko-ke bakwenta njengoba sekwaba netinguquko kutebuchwephesha mhlaba wonke. Lobu-ke ndzaba tebatsengi netekuchumana kulo mlawuli Fisiwe Vilane uthi babone kufanele kuhlanganisa abasakati labehlukene kanye-ke nebabhali betindzaba kude bakhone kutsekela lwati kabusha ngekuhambisana nebuchwephesha lobusha.
Ngekubona tinguquko letikhona kutekuchumana nebuchwephesha, umlawuli wetekuchumana eveni uhlanganisela abasebenta kulolu hlangothi kude bacecesheke kangcono ngekwenta imisebenti yabo kulesikhatsi lapho sekusetjentiswa buchwephesha lobuphucukile kutsi kuhanjiswe imilayeto ngekushesha. Lobuke tindzaba tebatsengi netekuchumana kulo mlawuli Fisiwe Vilane uchaza kabanti ngalo mhlangano sikolwa.
Sisakhulumisana netiteshi letisakatako tema-wireless netiteshi tabomabonakudze kube khona tingcinamba kumbe labativetako mayelana nokuthi lizinga letekusakata kangwane lingabi kumbe ngilelo leli ngathi likhonsile. Bese sesibona-ke ukuthi asisilanze bochwephesha labasuka ngaphandle kwaleli lasebasebente iminyaka leminingi etiteshini tabo wireless netiteshi tabo mabonakude kokuthi sebake batosikhamela lwati mayelana nokuthi ingabe vele yini le interstation sibe ngilesiphumelelayo.
Lomunye webasakati labachamuka eveni le-South Africa William Lehong uveta abumcoka bekushiyela naligwayi emkhathini webantfu labasebenta kulolu hlangothi.
Ukuzosiza ngokwamakhono, right? Asithi mhlambe wena umsakazi osebenzela eSwatini TV, ubuke mhlambe inhlelo esezikhona njengamanje, uzibuza ukuthi yingani asithi mhlambe ezase South Africa or ezakwamanye amazwe zibukeka ngenye indlela kodwa lezi zethu azifani nalezia. So thina size ngokuzosiza lokho, size ngokuzokhuphula izinga leintatheli zala eSwatini, labasakazi bala eSwatini nabaphathi bemisakazo.
Lo mhlangano isikole lokucala elangeni langeMsombuluko kubhekeke ukuthi uthathe liviki lonke ehhotela le-Hilton kudzingidwa tindzaba letithinta kusebenta kulolu hlangothi nekuthi tinkinga tingasombululeka kanjani kusasakatwa. Etindzabeni kubika Nothile Sithole, nginaThemba Shabangu, sisembabane.
Taba letifanele tiyendiwa kucinisekisa ukuthi bosomabhizinisi labathengisela litiko letemphilo emaphilisi nemithi babhadaleka masinyane. Lokhu kuvetwe yindvuna yelitiko letemafa umhlonishwa Neil Reichenberg ngesikhathi yachaza ngendlela hulumende lasebenta ngayo uma ke yasebenzisana nabosomabhizinisi kuthenga impahla yahulumende.
I think what we need to understand is the procurement process is cumbersome, but it also has all sorts of different options in it. You've got like emergency procurement. If the country's run out of medicines, it's definitely an emergency. And emergency procurement means that you can finish the whole procurement process in a month.
Indvuna yetemafa ithi litiko liyacinisekisa ukuthi bosomabhizinisi labathengisela litiko letemphilo babhadalwa kungakapheli liviki yetiko. Umhlonishwa uyachaza ukuthi bayakhona ukuthi batiphutfumise ticelo letibuya itiko letemphilo njengoba bacondza kahle ukuthi kufuneka emaphilisi nemithi letawusita sive futhi ticelo letinjengaleti akukafaneli time sikhatsi lesidze. Mhlonishwa uchubeke waveta ukuthi uhulumende usemkhankasweni wekuboleka imali etinhlanganweni temali emhlabeni kucinisekisa ukuthi bosomabhizinisi labathengisela uhulumende babhadalwa ngesikhathi. Uyachaza ukuthi uhulumende utfutfukisa nendlela bosomabhizinisi labathengisela uhulumende ngayo impahla yakhe ibe ngileyo yetebuciko kucinisekisa ukuthi kubhadalwa kwalabosomabhizinisi kuba ngilokusheshako. Etindzabeni teSwatini TV kubika Nelisiwe Ndlangamandla, nginavuma inkosi Nzinisa embabane.
Tisekhona tinhlangothi letingabekelwa bosomabhizinisi bekutsabuka lapha eveni kutebuciko. Lokhu ke kuvetwe ngithulani Fakutse lokhulumele umlawuli wetekuchumana ngesikhathi kuchubeka umhlangano wetinhlangothi letiseluhlangothini lwetebuciko lapho betfaka khona imivo yato ekwakhiweni kwemigomo wekusebenta kwemtsetfo wekutfutfukisa eMaswati lowatiwa nge-Citizen Economic Empowerment Act. Lo mhlangano bewubanjelwe United Nations Building eMbabane.
Kukhona lese kusakhulunyiswa, kukhona lese sekuvetile sibekise nje kuletinye tindzaba tekuthi kuthengiswa noma ku-distributor kwale equipment lesiyisebenzisako for communications purposes. Maybe lapho singabuka ukuthi lichaza lini lelingadlalwa ngeMaswati lapho.
Lilunga lelibandla lelibuka kusebenta kwalomtsetfo Sakhile Nsibanze lithe Maswati asengawenda emabhizinisi etebuciko.
Kunemathuba lamaningi ku-software development space neku-infrastructure development nakhona ikhona, but siyabona ukuthi le gap vele lenkulu kakhulu ingana ku-capacity building.
Bosomabhizinisi bachaza ngebumcoka bekuthi tindzaba tebuciko tikhulunyiswe ngilomtsetfo.
Thina lesivanga sikumcoka kakhulu eveni kusita eMaswati ukuthi information itfolakale malula.
Lokumnanzi ukuthi uhulumende ukuthi phumelane ebaleni ngotani kithi sidanikete ifunding. Singajabulela ukuthi nangabe kwakhiwa njengoba sikwakha lesikuvaka kubozizwe la ngekhathi akungabese sengene eshelfini kaCommerce.
Siyayidzinga kakhulu i-ICT, lonke ihlobo lwebhizinisi liyayidzinga
ngobe noma ungayenda ibhizinisi yakho as long ungakayifaki wena ka-ICT ukuthi ukhone ku-networker uthole i-clientele ngeke ukhone kusebenza.
Tinhlangothi letahlukene ticale kufaka imivo yato kwakha umgomo wekusebenta kwemtsetfo lohlose kutfutfukisa bosomabhizinisi bekudzabuka lapha eveni ngemsombuluko yevikini leliphelile kantsi lo msebenti kubhekeke ukuthi ufike emaphethelweni ngalesibili kuleli viki. Etindzabeni teSwatini TV kubika Nelson Dlangamandla, nginavuma Inkosi Nzinisa eMbabane.
Umphathi welibhange elikhulu kuleli Dr. Philip Mnisi embikweni lothunyelelwe betindzaba umemetele ukuthi insengo yemali itawuchubeka nekuma ku-7% kuletinyanga letimbalwa letitako. Somnotfo Thembi Nkosi Dube uphawulile ngalombiko wesimo setimali waveta ukuthi inflation rate ibukeka ingeke yehle njengoba ke uma kucala inyanga letako kunensengo yetintfo letifaka ekhatsi gas lokubhekeke ukuthi ikhuphuke.
Bakhuluma nge-inflation ngokuthi ama-models abo akhomba ukuthi ingahle yehle in the short term. Noma-ke bakusho lokho kodwa nje mina ngisomnotho ngiyabona lokho ukuthi kungathi asivumelani nema-fundamentals. Sikhuluma ngokuthi lokhu kutawucala April gas uyakhuphuka. Sikhuluma ngokuthi kuhlongotwa kukhuphula i-VAT eNingizimu Afrika. Sikhuluma ngokuthi kunekukhuphuka kwentengo yapetrol. Nawo kuhlanganisa konke lokhu mina kuyangitshela ukuthi inflation ngeke iziye phansi. So kuyanginiketa umbutwanyana ukuthi ngabe le model yabo i-validated kanganani ngoba basenza ama-models. But siyathi ukuthi esikhathini lesiningi silandzela kwenteka eNingizimu Afrika asifisi kangako lo mehluko ube mkhulu ngoba kugcina kumbe kunemithelela lekhona lengaba khona ekuthengiselani noma ke ekusebenzisaneni kwethu ikakhulu on the financial sector. But nje is a good decision labayindile kodwa lama fundamentals awakhombi le modeling yabo. However, I agree bekukhulu ukuthi bangehlisa nesizathu nakhona ngama-fundamentals asivumbe kulesi simo kufanyalo kunako ukuthi wait and see kusekutawugcina kulunge kanjani.
Sikolwa lesifundisa ngekukhicita umcebo wemandla lohlobile STREC sithi inhloso yaso lenkulu kunika insha emakhono lahlukahlukene ekukhicita ngekusebenzisa i-renewable energy kodwa insha itawukhona kusungula emabhizinisi ngaleli khono.
Lesikole iSolar Training and Renewable Energy Entrepreneurship Center siqale kusebenta ngeminyaka wa-2021 eshiselweni. Lesikole sifundisa imakhono lafaka ekhatsi kuphehla gesi ngesola nangemoya kupheka ngekusebenzisa ilanga nalamanye amakhono lamaningi ekusebenzisa umcebo wemandla lohlobile. Umcondzisi walesikole Michelle McCabe uvetile ukuthi inagesi losebenziswa kulesikole esikhatsini lesiningi ngilophehlwe ngekusebenzisa isola.
The vision of STREC is very much to just bring renewable energy awareness to Eswatini and to the youth of Eswatini. And initially, we were very concerned about high unemployment rates, and so we wanted to try and make a mindset change for youth in this country so that we could encourage them to be entrepreneurs.
Lofundzisa ngetemagesi kanye nalowakho abangumfundzi bachazela amanye amakhono lafundziswako kulesikole ngekusebenzisa i-renewable energy.
Kusho abamana abafundi kuphela ngeke-installa emasola ukuthi batofaka ngekhathi endlini i-system yethu noma i-power. Kepha abafunda nangalokho ukuthi ibhoholi yona le yesola bayifaka kanjani. Lokhu bese-ke ukuthi nasebafunza ngale timvo tabo bhoholi lapho. Ngilapho bese bafaka lamanye ama-skills laba awatholako njenge-skill yokuplamba ngoba uma bafaka le bhoholi ufuna abafunze ukuplamba.
Incumbi yetindzawo kufaka khona amasola nyalo sekude ukuthi bantu bangalima kanjani. So lana sibese siyathi no asithathela amasola siwabeke etulu la ngephasi sihlanyele ti-bead for tetfu la ngephasi there are 3 sessions sihlanyele ti-bead for la ngetulu sahlanyela ama-strawberry and then la ngetulu kwese-farm. Phinze leti bead for stikhulisa using i-bioslurry because siphinze siproduce methane gas sisebenzisa bulongo betinkomo. So the end product yakhona it's a bioslurry sithatha yona siyidaluthe with water siyifake lana ukuze sithole tilimo letisetulu kakhulu.
Lesikole STREC siconze ngco egolini lelive laKangwane lapho live liphokophele ukuthi libe likhicita gesi wemcebo wemandla lohlobile longu-50% ngeminyaka wa-2013. Lesikolo sithi sisavuliwe nesikhala sekufaka isicelo sekufundza kanti sitawuvalwa ngomhla ka-31 March 2025. Imininingwane leminingi yatfolakala ekhasini lebuchwephesha ku-www.stric.org. Thando kuhle Mdluli, Endzabeni yeSwatini TV, Nhlangano.
Bantfu labasha basesitekini Macenselo bafundziswe kabanti ngetikhwama letikhona labangasitakala kuto uma bafuna kucala emabhizinisi. Umphathi wesikhwama sebantfu labasha i-Youth Enterprise Evolving Fund Mandla Nkambule uthi bantfu labasha labanyenti basesiteki abadi ngematfuba lakhona labangasitakala ngawo ke kucala emabhizinisi.
Lo sikutfola kwecaleni indzaba yale ukuthi abantu ukuthi information itfolakala kuphi kwecala nalokunye ukhanza ukuthi noma akhona lamahhovisi incumbi yalamahhovisi nalele sibamemeli abekho kakhulu la kule tinkundla kanti phela vele sithi sitawusebenza ngetinkundla si-decentralize ema-services nathi kusitile ke ngisho liciniso ukuthi kule minyaka emibili sisuka kuyo sakhile lo office sesiyakhona nalokubona ukuthi lidzingo lesha kangwane liyahlukana naleba insha lekaho nakamanzini ihlukana ngaletifundza nalo ubombo nje ukuthi sibe la sisibonisa cha insha idzinga ini idzinga kwaniswa kuphi ngoba bahlukile vele ngaletindzawo insha yethu ke lapha kuyalinywa la ngendasi kepha lesukubonako bakhala kahle ukuthi sibalungisele tindzaba ukuthi le mihlaba lekhona ingasebenziseka kanjani ngoba kuyabonakala noma bayitfolile ukhanzisa basachubeki nale misebenzi lekhona.
Umphathi wesifundza saselibonjeni Themba Msibi bekamelelwe ngulobuko ekuhleli intfutfuko kulesifundza sanele kunene.
Njengoba abantu labasha sathi ukuthi bangiyo imbewu yelive kuyasijabulisa kakhulu ukuthi batfolele ukuthi bafundziseke ngetinsita letikhona eveni letingabasita kuze ukuthi bacale emabhizinisi kutokhona ukuthi kusitakale bantfu bonke eveni nabasebasitakele nje kuyawugcina kusitakale bonke nemango wonke.
Bani labasha lebekatse bangelwa ukufundiswa kabanti ngekucala emabhizinisi bathi bazuze kakhulu kanti futhi lelwati labalitfolile litiyabasita basachubeka empilweni.
So nyalo sengiyati nje ukuthi kune program yabomake labalimako kodwa nale interested kuya kiyo.
Okay, sifundzile ke abantu labasha ukuthi singathola njani amathuba ukuthi sibe funded nasicala emabhizinisi.
Bona nje nami ngenda music so mangaba nesicelo mhlambe sekuthi bangilekelele ngikhone ku-improve ngithenge tinvoti ye-studio cause mina ngiphinze ngente nale production.
Masipala wasesiteki uvetile ukuthi unato tinhlelo tekusita insha kodwa kubuya kungathi ayikuconzi lokho njengaloku labanyenti batitshela ukuthi umsebenzi wamasipala kubusa tibi nje kuphela. Etindzabeni kubika Fortune Dlangamandla ngisesiteki.
Kutemidlalo masipala welidolobha lakaManzini usukumise umqhudelwano wemidlalo webhola lobita imali lengu-45,000 emalangeni lotawudlalelwa ngema-ward lali-12 langephasi kwaleli dolobha. Ngazike ngakulokunye emacembu ladlala ngaphansi kweligi yabadlali beminyaka lebangaphansi kweli-14 budzala bathi litfuba lekubuya kuyawudlala noma ke kuyawudlala lo mqhudelwano bayalibonga kodwa kube yindlela yokudlala etinkhundleni letisezingeni ikhona ngabe ke bayaniketwa lelitfuba kude batawutayela kudlala kuto. Asibahlole netmarket sitabuya sixoxisane ne-African Youth Congress.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406 7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Welcome back to the program. You're still watching Kusile Breakfast Show. This is our first interview segment, and we want to look into youth economic liberation and youth empowerment, which is a big, big vision for an Africa where young entrepreneurs lead the charge into a prosperous future. But it's not just an aspiration, it is also a move. And right now, Eswatini plays host to a delegation from the African Youth Congress, who they are engaging with the Youth Chamber of Commerce and Industries in Eswatini to forge new paths in entrepreneurship, in industrialization, as well as land reform. At the center of these discussions, the upcoming International Youth Summit on Land and Economic Liberation and Freedom that will be hosted in Harare. It is a summit that promises to redefine the role of youth in Africa's economic trajectory. Now, this morning, I am joined by a delegate from the African Youth Congress, Torai Kandishaya, as we unpack what this visit really means for young Africans and what it's going to mean really for young Africans and young Emaswati, the road to it, and the big question, can youth-led initiatives really deliver economic transformation? Good morning, Torai. Welcome to Eswatini first. Let's start there. I hope you've been enjoying your stay. I understand it's day 2 of your stay here in the kingdom. We understand the African Youth Congress is on a mission for economic liberation. That is a powerful phrase. I want you to define it for us. What does economic liberation actually look like for the African youth today? Good morning.
Thank you so much. Good morning. African liberation is all about having Africans to own their economies. We're encouraging Africans to own their means of production in their own countries. We understand that the yesteryear colonial master is satisfied in giving us political independence, but still controls the economic means of our countries. And you know, it's said that he who feeds you controls you. So as Africa, we want total control of our economic means, full access to our own resources, full access to our own land, so that we utilize it fully to feed ourselves. So when we say land and economic freedoms, what we want to see is a young African owning pieces of land, doing production on that land, producing food to feed his own country. We want Africa to get to a point where we export more than we import. In Africa where raw materials are not exported, but finished products. In Africa where means of production are entirely in the hands of Africans.
It sounds very ambitious, but at the same time, it's an aspiration that we really want, to really own, because it should really take our youth out of, the doldrums and the current, trying times that they are really facing in terms of unemployment, as well as the means of production by the youth, fueled by the youth, and obviously the downstream effect there in our MSME development. Let's talk about the conference itself, International Youth Summit on Land and Economic Liberation 2025. We understand land reform and industrialization are central themes, and indeed, industrialization has been a central theme in Africa since the advent of the AfCFTA. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, land reform. It has been a contentious issue across the continent. What are some of the African Youth Congress's stands And how do you ensure that this isn't really just another summit without any implementation?
You know, what we are pushing for are reformed land policies across the continent of Africa, where we are engaging governments to say, look, the only way you can tap into the energy of young persons is if you give them ownership of land and access to economic means. Because Africa is the youngest continent with over 60% of Africa's population being young persons. But if these young persons do not own means of production, are not involved in means of production, it means their energy will go to waste. And as a result, you will see young persons engaging in unlawful activism which is retrogressive because they have nothing to defend. What we need to advise our leaders is that if you want to see young persons contributing to the economic growth, give them ownership, give them access. You will not see a young person throwing stones at his own building. You will never see young persons burning their own businesses. But the fact that at times young persons feel they are being left out, they are not being considered. And being young does not mean one does not have a family. He is a youth during the day. He's a parent at home. So we must know that the only way we can bring stability in our own economies is by leaving no one and no place behind. And in this case, there is untapped energy, there is untapped resource, which is the input of young persons. So if we need peace, we need stability. You've been following quite a lot of chaos in our continent. Who is at the front of causing instability? Who is paid to go into the streets unlawfully? Who is paid to be violent? It's young persons. But that he who is paying them understands very well that idle mind is very dangerous. And to talk of jobs, we are in a situation where employment is becoming a problem. So we need governments to understand that it's not about jobs. Young persons have capacity to create their own jobs, because we are looking forward to create generational wealth. And you cannot create generational wealth by employment. The only way we can create generational wealth is when we have total ownership of our land, is when we have full access to the economic means of our countries. We need to understand that, because we are not only leaders of the future, we are leaders now. Ours is not an ambition to take political offices. Ours is not an ambition to be presidents. Ours is an ambition to be connected to the natural resources of our countries.
Yeah.
What we need to see is a young Africans becoming millionaires, becoming billionaires, the biggest, the richest person in an African country being an African of that country, the most famous individual in an African country being an African from that country. That way, leaders would have put responsibilities on our shoulders. That way, you see young persons putting their shoulders on the wheel to make things happen.
All right. I mean, that has been a very loaded answer, but I really do want us to get into now this fascinating collaboration, if you like, with Eswatini. I mean, from the outside looking in, it looks like a case study of a small economy that is leveraging continental networks. What are some lessons that the rest of Africa can take from Eswatini's approach to youth entrepreneurship?
One thing that I must say about Eswatini is that it is a true reflection of African identity. The peace, stability, and inclusion that I've seen in Eswatini is unmatched. As small as it looks, the plans of Eswatini are big, bigger than certain countries that are big in terms of size. We've been moving here, massive construction taking place, employment being created, and the way the government and authorities are creating, opportunities for young persons. The first opportunity that a young person wants is to be heard. I'm happy that the leadership in Eswatini gives an ear to the young persons. So as young persons, if we are heard, we know that is the first step in the right direction. I know there's quite a lot, there's sugarcane farming here, and that sugarcane is being done on larger scale. Utilization of the small pieces of land that we have is the key to growth. We cannot let our lands be idle. But in order to achieve this, we need to uphold our cultural values. One thing that I've learned from Eswatini, because if you allow cross-culture to confuse or to dilute your own culture, it means you have departed from the ambition of seeing your own country developing. We need to develop in our culture. We need to develop in our values. We need to develop in our beliefs. Because when someone else comes to colonize you or to advance his or her own interests, the first step that they do is to collapse your own beliefs, your own culture, and impose a foreign culture on you. The moment you adopt a foreign culture, it means you've also adopted the policies of those that have imposed a culture on you. But one thing that I must say about Eswatini, it's a one practical example of true Pan-Africanism.
Yeah.
I've seen Ubuntu here. I am because you are. The love that is among our people. Because for as long as people are fighting, for as long as people are polarized, then there won't be development. Africa is where it is today because of polarization, where people are made to think along political lines, where people are made to forget the national agenda and the national vision. And for that reason, having associated with young persons from Eswatini, I must say Eswatini is the beacon of Pan-Africanism in the continent. We need the culture of Eswatini to be heard across Africa. Of course, we may go to Dubai and these other countries, but we need to be visiting ourselves as Africa to promote trade amongst ourselves, to promote cultural exchanges amongst ourselves.
Absolutely. I cannot extend the sense of pride, the sense of patriotism and the sense of confidence that I have just felt while you were pronouncing that assertion there. Because, I mean, if you can see my outfit today, surely you really understand why I align what I'm saying with exactly what you have just said. But let's put that in context. I can really see that happening in Eswatini, but let's give now the continental sort of POV, if you like, the cultural dynamics put alongside all the economic policies, the trade regulations. The African continent is vast. It has the trade regulations, it has the economic policies, and it has the cultural dynamics with which you have just spoken to. And we talk about African unity. That is how we're going to leverage these trade policies, and that is how we're going to leverage really this young Africa that you have just spoken, to, with 60% being young people in the demographic dividend of Africa. How does then the African Youth Congress really navigate these differences in economic policies, in trade policies, and these cultural dynamics in pushing a continental youth agenda with all these differences?
Thank you so much, my brother. As Africa Youth Congress, so far we are working on the image of Africa. A lot is said, especially on internet, about these African countries. A lot of negativity about Eswatini, a lot of negativity about Zimbabwe. But the moment I landed here in Eswatini, there is nothing bad that I witnessed. But you go on internet, it's like there's no freedom in Eswatini, there's no democracy, there are no happy people in Eswatini. If you go on internet, you look at Zimbabwe, the same, there are no happy people in Zimbabwe, there is instability in Zimbabwe, there is oppression, there is no respect for human rights. But if you go on ground, you will see that it's a deliberate effort by the imperialists to paint a bad picture on our country so that investments don't feel safe. So what we are working on as Africa Youth Congress is to promote a better image of our continent. How do we do that? We now need to encourage each other. We should be visiting one another. What is it that you do in Eswatini that we can do in Zimbabwe? What is being in Zimbabwe that can be done in Eswatini? You go maybe to South Africa, you see maybe German products in the shelves of their shops, but you won't see a product from Eswatini. You go to Zambia, there are Chinese products in the shelves, but there are no Zimbabwean products. So if it's easier for somebody from Europe, from Asia, to invest in Eswatini, it must be more easier for a Zimbabwean to do so. But to achieve that, we need to speak positive about our continent. So when we meet in Harare, the idea is to bring opportunities on table and say, as Africans, before we go out of Africa, how best can we share opportunities amongst ourselves? Because the Africa Free Trade policy now needs to be put into practice. We cannot be imposing trade regulations amongst ourselves. What it means is that we have long departed from our cultural value, which is guided by Ubuntu. I am because you are. If we choose to go back to default settings, if we choose to be who we are known for being, it means there won't be these trade restrictions because we know these borders are artificial. Obviously, we cannot remove them physically, but we must erase these borders from our heads, from our minds. I always say to people that I know of animals that spend days in Zimbabwe and at night they will be in Mozambique. I know even here you can see monkeys and baboons that spends day maybe in Eswatini and at night they will be in Mozambique. We are better than animals. We must do away with this attitude of putting borders before humanity. We are humans first before we demarcate the borders. So as Africa, we need to lock our doors. You know, it's very difficult for an African company to supply, to penetrate the European Union market. They have standards and restrictions. But why can't we have a consolidated paper and a policy to say, buy Africa first? We need the buy Africa policy. Yeah. If I want to buy shoes, I must look for the shoes from an African country before I go to Alibaba. Because if I buy from that application, even if we are buying from within Eswatini, there's a profit for them, but they are not in Africa. So let's come up with a Visit Africa policy, a Buy Africa policy.
Tarai, thank you so much for the time this morning. He is the chairperson of the African Youth Congress. He is in Eswatini. They are in conversation with the Youth Chamber of Commerce Industries in Eswatini to try and forge insights as well as means to really leverage some of the vast opportunities and the untapped potential that our youth can really tap into, but also to hold those that are making these potentials really happen for the youth accountable to making sure that our youth do indeed get to leverage these opportunities. The youth of Africa, the economic disruptors of tomorrow, or is the system still working against them? That is the big question. From Eswatini to Harare and beyond, the wheels are indeed in motion. And the question now is whether the generation can translate policy dialogues into the real economic shifts. But one thing is for certain after this conversation, the world is watching. And to our guests from the African Youth Congress, we will be tracking the journey to the forum that is going to be happening in Harare 2025 very closely. Let's go for a net break. We'll be back shortly.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Welcome back. You're still watching Kusile Breakfast Show this Tuesday morning. These are our English news. The Minister of Agriculture, Honorable Mandla Chauka, has officially unveiled the Board of Directors of the Eswatini Water and Agriculture Development Enterprise. They're going to oversee and complete major agricultural projects to ensure the ministry fulfills its mandate of achieving national food security. The minister made the announcement while presenting the new board, which is chaired by Nomusa Dlamini Dibane.
Agriculture Honorable Mandla Chauka emphasized that their role is to ensure the ministry achieves its core pillars, which are uplifting the agricultural economy, improving service delivery, and ensuring national food sovereignty. The Honorable Minister stressed that the new board must prioritize completing large-scale agricultural projects that will improve water access for farmers, enhance irrigation infrastructure, and boost crop production. These include the LUCIP 2 and Mkhondro Ngwavuma augmentation project.
Kwekuqala nje sine project lenkulu ngala ngendansi lesithi ngiLUCIP 2. Le project le ifinance ngabe iyaphela lo nyaka. Kodwa ke ngenxa yetimali sasikathola imali etanele ukuthi iphele. Kodwa ke siyitholile imali enganga just over 200 million ku budget lo nyaka. Lenye ke project letawuqala lo nyaka le sesitholile ifunding yayo kuthiwa isaphem sitawuzama ukusita abalimi ikakhulu abancane.
He says that the government is committed to ensuring national food security and economic growth through agricultural development, and IWAID's board will be instrumental in achieving these goals. The minister points out that agriculture remains one of Eswatini's economic backbones and called on the board to work tirelessly to ensure that farmers, especially smallholder farmers, receive the support and resources they need to thrive. The newly appointed board chairperson Nomusa Dlamini Dibane expressed gratitude for the trust bestowed upon the board and vowed to fully commit to the task.
Singathembisa kwekuthi sikuvile futhi sitawutimisela.
She acknowledges the immense responsibility that comes with the role and emphasized her commitment to delivering on the mandate given to them. The chairperson reassures the Minister of Agriculture that the board would work with transparency, accountability, and a clear focus on results. The board, appointed by the minister, is expected to serve a 3-year term. It consists of 10 members, including the ministry's principal secretary, Sydney Smelane, Muzi Siyaya, Busangaya Masina, and IWAID CEO Samson Sithole, to name a few. Reporting, I'm Natsila Sithole, with Sondom Langeni, Mbabane.
The Finance Minister, Neil Reichenberg, has officially announced Bapegile Matsebula as the new Director General of the Eswatini Financial Intelligence Unit. The minister stated that this unit has been given a mandate to address financial crime while also maintaining the integrity of the financial sector in the Kingdom of Eswatini. He made the announcement at the EFIU offices yesterday.
The Eswatini Financial Intelligence Unit has been given a mandate by the government to safeguard the financial integrity of the country. The Minister of Finance, Honorable Neil Rackenback, has announced Babegile Mathebula as the new Director General, who has been tasked with ensuring that the EFIU remains at the cutting edge of financial intelligence, setting new standards and achieving measurable milestones.
This appointment marks a significant milestone in our ongoing efforts to strengthen the country's governance of anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing, to secure financial system, and to drive the economic growth agenda. As we navigate through these challenging times, it's imperative that we have a strong leadership at the helm of our financial monitoring and regulatory institutions. As such, the role of the EFIC Director General is crucial in ensuring that our efforts in combating money laundering and preventing terrorism financing are effectively implemented so that we can achieve our goals of improving the country's mutual evaluation ratings and becoming fully compliant with the FATF recommendations.
Babegile Mathebula, the new Director General of Eswatini Financial Intelligence Unit, pledges that the unit will continue to uphold its core values.
As you will know, Honourable Minister, we're also responsible for the designated non-financial businesses and professionals. In that respect, Minister, we will review and strengthen our regulatory and supervisory tools for the DNFBPs to effectively supervise and manage compliance in the sector. May I take this opportunity, Honourable Minister, to also acknowledge the outstanding work of the team of at the Eswatini Finance Intelligence Center and the leadership that has come before me. In particular, Honourable Minister, I'd like to acknowledge the contribution by my predecessor, Mr. Graham Fitzgerald.
Minister Rackenback assures that the incident of leaking financial intelligence information that occurred previously will not happen again, as new systems are now in place to prevent such occurrences. Eswatini TV News, Sondomlangeni with Themba Shabangu, Mbabane.
The Director for Agriculture, Nelson Mavuso, says that farmers were able to successfully fight the outbreak of African armyworms. Mavuso says that all the areas that were affected no longer have these outbreaks. He made these remarks while giving an update on the African armyworm situation in Eswatini.
Farmers in the Kingdom of Eswatini have been facing challenges in the past few weeks due to an outbreak of African armyworms, which affected almost all regions. This surprised farmers as the country is working towards producing enough stable grain. In response, the Ministry of Agriculture quickly issued guidelines for farmers on how to combat the worms. The Director of Agriculture, Nelson Mavuso, says that the ministry has visited all affected areas and confirmed that the African armyworms are no longer a concern.
Abonisane nebalimi sikhanzile kwehla kwagcina kuncane lengaphindze ngigcizelele noma inhlanhla yethu lesibe nayo eveni lesibungu sifike ema crops lamaningi asafike ku maturity stage.
Mavuso says that the yields will not be affected as the outbreak occurred after the crops had reached the maturity stage. Mavuso says that these worms typically affect crops at the grassroots level. Mavuso says that the challenge was overcome because farmers followed all necessary precautions as advised by the ministry. The president of the Eswatini National Agriculture Union, Matthias Mathebula, confirmed that there have been no further reports of African armyworms from farmers. Mathebula says that farmers strictly followed the guidelines provided by the ministry. The ministry has also advised farmers to avoid using pesticides that could cause harm to people and animals. Eswatini TV News, Sondomlangeni, Mbabane.
The Ministry of Agriculture officers will relocate to the renovated offices at the end of March 2025. The PS in the Ministry of Agriculture, Sydney Simelan, has confirmed that indeed the ministry structure is almost complete, and he made these remarks while providing an update on the renovation of the ministry's official offices. There's a report.
muhle umsebenzi kwekucala. Kwesibili sibonga ukuthi kuhambe ngale pace noma ngale speed velele bese sibhekile. So by the end of this month, March, kufuna sibe siphumile sonke siletulu emahhovisi ethu.
We are thrilled to announce that we will soon be moving back to our newly renovated offices, which have been designed to offer a much larger and more open space. The renovation of our original office spaces is now almost complete, and we are eager to settle into the upgraded environment. These improvements reflect our commitment to creating a more comfortable and efficient workspace for all our staff. One of the key upgrades is the expansion of our boardroom. In the past, it was somewhat smaller and limited in capacity, but with the renovation, we have created a much larger and more modern space that will better accommodate our growing needs and foster more productive meetings. Additionally, we are pleased to share that as part of this renovation, we have incorporated office spaces for the Food and Agricultural Organization, FAO. This development aligns with the request made by Their Majesties to house the FAO offices within our premises. We see this as a significant step towards strengthening our ongoing collaboration with FAO and enhancing our relationship with this important international organization. By housing their offices in our new space, we hope to further promote shared goals and initiatives in the fields of food security and agriculture.
The Parliament of the Kingdom of Eswatini is among the countries that promote inclusivity, particularly for women and persons with disabilities, especially within the parliamentary structure. Now, this comes after members of parliament participated in the 56th SADC Parliamentary Forum held in Zambia.
During the parliamentary business on Monday, the House of Senate, particularly the Portfolio Committee members, tabled the Portfolio Committee report for various ministries for the year 2025-2026. One of the reports discussed was the 56th SADC Parliamentary Forum Plenary Assembly session. Senator Isaac Makakula highlighted that the Parliament of Eswatini has a significant number of women, which is not commonly seen in other countries.
Sabeka ukuthi bomake nasenda nje example kule minyaka lo yongena lorandzela lo besiye kuwo besingakhuluma nga14 wabomake labasekhundleni noma labaseparliament.
Makakula says that the presence of a senator representing persons with disabilities in the Honorable House reflects the Parliament's commitment to ensuring that everyone is represented. Senators also commended Their Majesties, the leaders who ensure that no one is left behind, especially women. They praised the speeches delivered by Their Majesties, affirming that the Kingdom is offering opportunities to all. Senators also noted that young people are well represented as well. The senators then adopted the reports. Feswatini TV News Sondomlangeni, Smuva Shongwe, Temba Shabangu, Parliament.
The Eswatini Communications Commission is urging broadcasters and media professionals to adapt to changes in the communications sector because technological advancements continue globally. Eskom Consumer Affairs and Communications Manager Fisiwe Vilane says it is crucial to bring together broadcasters and journalists to enhance their knowledge as well as to align them with the emerging industry standards.
Recognizing the rapid changes in communication and technology, the Eswatini Communications Commission has convened industry professionals for a training to improve their work in an era where advanced technologies are being used to speedily transmit information. Eskom Consumer Affairs and Communications Manager Fisiwe Vilane provides further details on this workshop.
Sisakhulumisana netiteshi letisakatako tema-wireless netiteshi tabomabonakudze.
Vilane says the media and communications industry is evolving rapidly, driven by digital technology and changing consumer behavior, which is why journalists and broadcasters must continuously upgrade their skills to keep pace with global trends and deliver credible, accurate, and timely information. She explains that the workshop aims to bridge the knowledge gap between traditional media practices and modern digital communication strategies. South African broadcaster William Lehong highlights the importance of knowledge sharing among media professionals.
all the key, departments within the broadcasting industry, which is radio and television production, which is news gathering. And both of these to function, you need advertisers to advertise on both these platforms. And for the advertising and the radio and TV to function, you need people with digital and technical skills who know what they're doing. So we are really here to then help enhance the skills that the colleagues have, and in some cases help develop, right? Because sometimes we have ideas, but we don't know how to actualize them or to manifest them in reality. So we are here to help you with that process.
The workshop is expected to run for a week at the Hilton Hotel and will explore key issues in the media sector and discuss possible solutions to broadcasting challenges. Reporting, I am Nosile Sitole with Themba Shabango, Mbabane.
Late payment of suppliers is a long-standing issue that has caused an outcry in the country, with a lot of concerns arising from the health sector lately. Now, the Minister for Finance, Neil Reichenberg, has clarified the procurement issues.
The minister has explained that more has been done to ensure the payment of suppliers is swift.
Look, I think what we need to understand is the procurement process is cumbersome, but it also has all sorts of different options in it. You've got like emergency procurement. If the country's run out of medicines, it's definitely an emergency. And emergency procurement means that you can finish the whole procurement process in a month. At the moment, the Ministry of Health approached us as a Ministry of Finance, said they'd like to go for emergency procurement because they wanted to move to buy some medicines from South African wholesalers, which had a lot of stock of medicines and they could help them. We helped them straight away. Within a month, they were up and running. And as we speak, there's a lot of medicines now coming in from the South African wholesale companies. And that's what's actually saving the day at the moment in Eswatini. So even though the procurement process is cumbersome, there's avenues to be able to say, listen, there's a single source. Only this company in the world provides ARVs, for instance. It's pointless going to tender because you know there's only one supplier. So you go for what you call a single source procurement request, which means there's no tender process. You just go for single source. You know who the supplier needs to be because they're the only ones producing it, and you then buy from them. So all those avenues are in the procurement legislation, and they do use them. The Ministry of Health is actually now quite strategically using these methods of procurement. There's payment of suppliers where we do have a problem. Then there's payment of medicines, which we prioritize and we pay every week. So we handle these things very differently. So do we have a problem with paying suppliers? We do have a problem paying suppliers, and we need to get a cash flow injection to try and solve that.
He stated that the ministry is working around the clock to ensure suppliers are paid on time. For Eswatini TV News, Nelson Dlangamandla, Vuminkosi Nzinisa, Mbabane.
The Eswatini Communications Commission says there are some sectors that can be reserved for indigenous Emaswati in broadcasting, telecommunications and postal services. Director Technical Tulani Fagutse highlighted this when sectors in the information, communication and technology made their contributions towards the formulation of the Citizens Economic Empowerment Act regulations, which was at the United Nations building in Mbabane.
As an example, we believe there is an opportunity for young people to participate in areas such as the distribution and retailing of electronic communications equipment, devices and the like. So those are some of the issues that we are discussing and contributing on to say maybe it's some of the areas. Also, whilst that has been a long tradition in terms of the regulated sectors, ownership limitations to say maybe a certain percentage in terms of licensed service providers, they are limited to locals.
Sakile Nsibanze, a member of the Citizen Economic Empowerment Council, says there are still opportunities in the ICT sector for local businesses.
Most of Emaswati know about the digital divide, and it means that there's quite a big gap in terms of inviting youth businesses or startups to actually participate in this industry, because most of the people don't understand how it functions. They don't see the value chain.
Different businesses have shared their expectations on the Act, especially in relation to ICT.
If access to information is improved and the word is democratized, where everyone can get information anyhow, anytime, that could significantly improve how people do things.
umnyanzi ukuthi uhulumeni ukuthi phumelane ebaleni wotani kithi sidaniketa ifunding. Singajabulela ukuthi nangabe kwakhiwa njengoba sikwakha lesikuvaka kubozizwe la ngekhathi akungabese sengena eshelfini ka-commerce.
You can't do any business without the ICT. We need to communicate each and every day with our clients.
The Citizen Economic Empowerment Act introduces several measures to support local businesses, which include preferential procurement, supportive business culture, as well as regional development initiatives. More businesses are still expected to make their contributions to the regulations that are formulated to put the act into motion. For Eswatini TV News, Nelson Dlangamandla, Vuminkosi Nzinisa, Mbabane.
From the international front, Israeli protesters took to the streets for a sixth day on Sunday. Amid reports Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's cabinet is preparing a no-confidence motion on the Attorney General in its latest move against officials deemed hostile to the government. Meanwhile, Netanyahu, pushing to dismiss Internal Security Chief Ronen Bar, alleged an attempt to bring down his government after Israeli media reported Barr's agency spent months probing far-right infiltration of the police.
Benjamin Netanyahu testified in court Monday in his long-running trial on corruption charges as political tensions surge in Israel. The Israeli Prime Minister's push to sack top legal and security officials has reignited a protest movement that calls him a threat to democracy.
When the government dismisses the gatekeepers of democracy, the head of the Shin Bet and the legal advisor to the government, in order to preserve its rule, we know that we are living in a tyrannical regime.
In his latest accusation against Shin Bet chief Ronen Bar, after he pushed to fire him on Friday, Netanyahu said he had not approved an investigation into National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir. This after Israeli media reported Bar's agency spent months probing far-right infiltration of the police, which Ben-Gvir is in charge of. The Shin Bet is also investigating a possible infiltration of Netanyahu's office by Qatar. Allegations which Netanyahu called fake news, accusing Bar of ulterior motives.
Citizens of Israel, I have a dramatic revelation. Ronen Bar's dismissal was not intended to prevent the investigation. The investigation was intended to prevent the dismissal.
After Attorney General Gali Baharav Miara suggested that Netanyahu may have a conflict of interest in Bar's dismissal, the Prime Minister began proceedings to sack her too. The Supreme Court is likely to block her dismissal, as it did for Ronen Bar's, pitting Netanyahu once again against the judiciary, which has long served as a check and balance on government decisions.
If the government decides not to obey the court's decision, it will, on that very day, at that very moment, turn itself into an outlaw government.
Israel's opposition leader has called for a general strike and tax revolt if the government refuses to abide by the court's decision.
French police are investigating an assault against a rabbi in the central city of Orleans at the weekend. Jewish campaigners have condemned it as the latest in a wave of anti-Semitic attacks in France, which they say have escalated since the October 7 Hamas attacks and the beginning of the war in Gaza.
We will not hide. That's the message from these Jewish protesters in Paris who gathered on Sunday to warn against a rise in anti-Semitism in France.
This is a message of urgency, and we must mobilize and speak to the young generation to prevent anti-Semitism from becoming the new norm.
We're especially determined to fight this, because since October 7th, 2023, and in 2024, there's been an uninterrupted increase in anti-Semitic acts.
The rally followed an attack in the city of Orléans. On Saturday, the city's chief rabbi was assaulted as he left a Sabbath service with his young son It was filmed by an eyewitness. An investigation is underway and one teenage suspect is in detention. For the Jewish community of Orléans, it's part of a disturbing trend since October 7th, 2023, with incidents targeting Jews escalating from anti-Semitic graffiti to violent attacks.
I'm not saying there's fear, but obviously we're back to where we were before, which was worrying about whether the synagogue was going to be targeted. Do we have to hide? To tiptoe around?
According to French government figures, there were more than 50 reported across the country last year, similar to the previous year's number, but a large jump from 2022 when fewer than 500 incidents were reported. Jewish campaigners accuse France's hard-left parties of being part of a wave of anti-Semitism, saying that, among other things, they have minimised Hamas attacks, used imagery evoking anti-Semitic caricatures, and declined to participate in protests against anti-Semitism. Leftist politicians say their absence from those marches was because of the presence of the far-right National Rally. The main umbrella organisation of French Jewish groups is seeking to distance itself from the National Rally, saying the fight against anti-Semitism should not be exploited politically.
South Korea's Constitutional Court reinstated Prime Minister Han Duck-soo to the post of acting president on Monday, striking down his impeachment as he pledged to focus on steering Asia's fourth biggest economy through a U.S. trade war. Now, the ruling, which comes amid months of political turmoil in the country, returns Han to power immediately, and he took over as acting leader from President Yoon Suk-yeol, who was impeached over his imposition of martial law in December.
No longer impeached, and thus able to step in again for South Korea's other impeached leader. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo is officially back as acting president, after South Korea's Constitutional Court ruled that he should be reinstated to the role he took on after President Yoon Suk-yeol himself was impeached.
I don't think there's any other country that's gone through such a fierce struggle as ours. And although our people are undergoing a lot of conflict right now, I think we all want to see our country, the Republic of Korea, continue to prosper and develop.
The Constitutional Court's 7-1 ruling that strikes down Han's impeachment is just the latest chapter in the political turmoil that's rocking South Korea. Prime Minister Han was removed in December, just 2 weeks after taking on the role. For the court, the nation's number 2 turned temporary number 1 did not warrant impeachment.
The impeachment request in this case is inappropriate because it failed to meet the support of a 2/3 parliamentary majority.
The ruling, though, is just one of 2 impeachment cases that South Koreans were waiting for. The Constitutional Court must now rule on whether stripping President Yoon Suk-yeol from office was valid. He was removed after declaring martial law on December 3rd. That decree created massive outrage and lasted just 6 hours. It also led Parliament to strip the president of his duties.
With this verdict behind us, the impeachment trial of the president is the only remaining important trial. The court must decide on the date of the ruling, and the justices must reach the decision in accordance with the law and constitution.
I have to respect the court's decision. However, I'm not sure the South Korean people will be able to accept it.
The Constitutional Court is expected to rule on the impeachment of President Yoon in the coming days. If it's struck down, he'd become president again. If it's upheld, elections would be called within 60 days in a politically ever-divided South Korea.
Istanbul's embattled Ekrem İmamoğlu spent his first night in jail on Monday, a day after his suspension as mayor, as 10 journalists were detained for covering the mass demonstrations that his detention sparked across Turkey. Now, the protests began in Istanbul after İmamoğlu's arrest on Wednesday and have since spread to more than 55 of Turkey's 81 provinces, sparking clashes with riot police in the country's worst street protests in more than a decade.
A swarm of riot police charged towards protesters outside Istanbul City Hall, deploying water cannons and tear gas. Arrests were made, some demonstrators were handcuffed and pinned to the ground, while others stood tall displaying Turkish flags. It was the 5th consecutive night that protests have drawn hundreds of thousands of people in support of Ekrem İmamoğlu. The mayor of Istanbul and President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's main rival was voted in as the opposition's presidential nominee on Sunday. while being taken by convoy to jail, pending corruption charges. If he is convicted, he will not be able to run for the top job, but he is staying optimistic.
I'd like to share with you news from Silivri prison that makes me very happy. There was a record level of participation in the presidential primary election of our Republican People's Party.
His party, the CHP, says some 15 million people still cast a ballot on Sunday in what they described as a solidarity vote.
With these accusations, the aim is to defeat Ekrem İmamoğlu, reduce his power, and capture Istanbul.
On Monday morning, his arrest was the front page story across Turkey. But while some view this as a moment to fight for democracy, others are feeling defeated.
There is no such thing as justice in the Republic of Turkey. Absolutely not. I don't believe it. I'm even thinking of leaving the country. I don't want to live here anymore.
Erdogan has held office for 22 years. He's set to finish his second presidential term in 2028, the maximum number under the constitution. However, many believe he could call early elections, which would enable him to legally run again.
The Manzini municipality has launched a football tournament with a prize pool of 45,000 emalangeni, which will be contested by the 12 wards under the city's jurisdiction. Now, the competition is exclusively for football players from the Manzini region who must adhere to the tournament's regulations. This initiative was launched at the Manzini municipality offices.
Promote unity among residents of Manzini, the city's municipality has launched a football tournament in which all 12 wards of the city will compete for the championship. The deputy mayor of the city, Wesley Dlamini, stated that they aim to encourage residents to be active and to keep young people away from bad habits through sports.
The Manzini City Awards tournament is not just about playing football, but it's all about creating a platform where community members come together and showcase and celebrate their talents. Also, learning the values of teamwork, discipline, and sportsmanship.
The Manzini City Council Acting Chief Executive Officer Zweli Mapanga explained that the tournament aligns with the city's integrated development plan, which runs until 2030.
The municipality has recently adopted a new integrated development plan for the period 2024 to 2030. And as part of this plan, the development and rehabilitation of community recreational facility is a very key priority. The tournament we are launching today will feature 12 municipal wards, each competing in a strictly knockout format.
Sandile Nyawene from Ward 5 praised the city for organizing such tournament.
Singathanza lokubonga ikakhulukazi mayor una ubahlonishwa lokuthi nikubone kufanele ukuthi kule era kule generation lesikiyo siphindze siwende nanga ema games lamqoka lamakhulu kangaka.
There will be no prize money for the participating teams, and the tournament will take place over 3 Saturdays, starting next Saturday as well as on the 5th and on the 12th next month. All matches will be played at the Zakhele Community Ground. Reporting for Eswatini TV Sports, I'm Linda Dlamini. Bye-bye.
Let's go for a break. We have Eswatini Meat Industries in studio after the break.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406 7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi.
Aba research bafunze.
Being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kulula.
Nathi kufuna sente ukukhiqiza lokusemndeni.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience.
This is Kusile Breakfast Show, the Tuesday edition. You are still with us on our second hour of the show, and this is our second interview segment where we want to talk all things quality. Quality in production, quality in standards, and quality on your plate. Eswatini Meat Industries has long positioned itself as a leader in the region's meat industry, and with clients from Norway visiting Eswatini last week, international traceability standards in place, and a slew of quality awards under their belt. The company is setting benchmarks that indeed go beyond Eswatini's borders. But what does farm to fork really mean for consumers? That is yourself and myself. And how is the Mbiveni meat market ensuring that quality meat products are really accessible for all of us? The international market, the people from Norway and other countries from the international community, as well as us here at home in Eswatini. Nonsekelo Dlamini joins me in studio. She's the marketing officer at Eswatini Meat Industry. She's going to unpack all of it. Good morning, Nkosi. Welcome to the program. I don't know if I should start by congratulating Eswatini Meat Industries for always really tapping into the international stage. It seems as though you have been on a roll when it comes to that.
Yebo Mnguni, siyabonga kuba nathi ehlelweni, siyavusela kumbukeli ekhaya. Mnguni, yes, you are telling the truth. We are continuously tapping into the international grounds. Sidlala nema big guns.
Let's talk about this Norway visit, to Eswatini. I understand it's a big international focus that you've had. I mean, we've had a couple of conversations regarding the international focus. You've already covered ground in Eswatini, but that doesn't mean with satisfying your customers here. You hosted these people from Norway. Visit Lena. What was the purpose of the trip?
Okay, Mnguni. So Emma visitors for us in Norway, they are our clients. Okay. So we export our product to them. They are from a company called NK Importers. So basically, Norway is one of the strictest countries when it comes to food safety and quality standards. So besides Injeguti, Beveguti Tinicity, we are BRCGS certified, we are EU certified. They need to come and actually see so their visit was for that. So they are very zero tolerant.
Okay.
And they don't compromise when it comes to food safety and quality standards. Kangangoba noma le nyama yethu sesiyishiphile sayisa khona eNorway. Nayifika le kuma port of entry, the meat is tested to make sure ukuthi le nyama le ngenako eNorway akusiyo le lenetifo letfana nabo TB nabo salmonella. So they are very strict when it comes to that. So bafikile ke last week, mhla 18 and 19, they spent 2 days with Mbiveni. Sabathatha ke sabafaka e-factory yethu, sabafaka ku-process plant yethu, sabahambisa sabayisa esitolo lesitutane ne-factory, sabayisa ku-feedlot yethu, sabayisa nase-dipping tank lekhona kamanzini. So it was a full experience. Bakhonile kubona ukuthi le nkomo iqala kuphi na isaphila, ihambe ihlatshwe ingene e-factory iprocesswe, and then we do the test. This is how it's done, and then it comes to the packaging and it's shipped out. So they got to experience all of that.
And I can sort of understand they've already had the impression the meat, meets all the standards. Nabayibona ifika le kubo, but to really see the processes, the facilities, and the operations. Did they give you guys a review of the operations labawabonile as well as the facility? They went to some of the lapho khona nithi silotarisha khona. What were their sense of their review?
Okay, they really gave us good feedback. They were very much impressed with the processes and procedures that are put in place to make sure the quality and food safety standards are met. They like how our facility has been improved. They like how our testing of the meat has improved. So we really got good feedback. And on top of that, sibatete sabahambisa sababonisa the Mandenga Cultural Village.
Okay.
So they also got to experience the culture of Eswatini. They were there, they were happy, they were dancing with the people in Mandenga. So they got a full experience of business and pleasure.
Absolutely.
So it was really a beautiful visit, both for Mbiveni and the Norwegians.
And the Swatini obviously enjoying the tourism benefits from those effects there. Let's talk about traceability. You speak about farm to fork. It sounds like a very catchy phrase, but beyond it being a buzzword or the catchy phrase that it is, it carries with it big importance with regards to, transparency, regards to accountability, as well as safety. Yes. You're big on safety. Talk to me about, the tiluba leto ku-meat industries ukuthi vele nihlale niqinisekisa ukuthi nitigcina ku-standard.
Okay, traceability is the ability to track le nyama yakho, the meat production process from a farming to your plate. So a product yasembiveni comes with a traceability code. Le traceability code leyo ngiyo lesisitako ukuthi sikhone ku-tracer the whole process of the meat production. Ngiyabekisa nje Mnguni nakungenteka kube nel-customer lelitawuthenga leyo nyama yetfu kuthi 3-4 days down the line libuye el-customer litokhala ukuthi I bought this meat from eMathapa or eMbabane and the meat is not in good condition. Loku info lengenteke ke Mnguni, but we have these measures in place. Kwekuthi naselifikile leli customer siyakhona kuyithatha leyo product siyicheckele ukuthi iprocesswe nini, what tests were done on that meat product. Siyakhona nekufika to the extent ukuthi sathi ukuthi ngiphi lenkomo lekhicite lelicathala lenyama leli, sikhona kubona ukuthi lenkomo lena yakusiphi isibaya and beyidipha kuliphi lidiphi. So the traceability is for that. Solo ikhulumisa yona i-food and safety quality standard. So kuyasisita sing-Mbiveni lokho kuze ukuthi sitokhona kusingabe kukhona lokhambe kahle sikhona kulungisa la ngakahambi kahle khona, because we are very much big on food safety and quality standards. Just yesterday we were celebrating World Tuberculosis Day. Mbiveni plays a big role in that because sithi inyama yethu is TB tested. Siyayitesta sisho ukuthi emaswati sifuna adle inyama lede i-TB. So under the theme let's see, yes, we can end TB, Mbiveni is playing a huge role in that. Ngekuthi si make sure ukuthi lenyama is tested for TB and salmonella.
And I suppose that warrants why you guys keep begging these awards. from the start of our conversation, the visit here in Norway, and the impression that they got from the trip, and the your operations and your facilities, to the way the traceability and the codes therein. Yes. Let's talk about the recognition, nale quality. I understand you have been recognized for excellent at the Organization of the Year to Product of the Year and even the SADC Quality Awards.
Yes,
that is big.
Yes, Munguni. MBVeni participated in Eswatini Quality Awards that happened last month. So the awards took place last month. So we used our export primary cards to participate in the awards. Loguthi sithi export premium cards akusho ukuthi my products let's export only. We have these cards in our stores. Lokufana nabo Ram, bo Topside, bo Silver Side, bo Fillet. We are selling these products locally. So these are the cards that we used to participate in Lama Quality Awards. So yes, we got recognition for Company of the Year award, which is very, very much big for MBVeni. So this award generally recognizes a company that is big on quality improvement on a year-to-year. So we got that award. My facilities for our processes and procedures are actually improving quality in our product. And we also got the Product of the Year award, which recognizes exceptional product quality and innovation. My products, they have exceptional quality, and each and every day we are improving, we are innovative. So
let's talk to the consumer now who's watching at home, who wants to taste this exceptional quality. Perhaps they haven't gotten a chance. I'm sorry if you still haven't really tasted this exceptional quality. If people from Norway are already, enjoying this exceptional quality, talk to them. That camera that is in front of you, can look straight into it and talk to them about, how they can access your meat through your key points.
Babukele makhaya ititolo tefuta sembiveni tikhona tithengisa yona lenyama lena lesithi i-TB free, i-salmonella free. Titolo tefuta iyatholakala eMbabane, sikhona kuMathapha, tikhona letimbili kaManzini ngoba siyadiphela kwese kaManzini kune-population learning. So tikhona timbili, sinye sise bus rank, sinye sise President Center. And then we also have a shop in Hlangano, lena ngenhlanga se Pick and Pay. And then our recent addition was our mini market at Sipofaneni. So titolo tefuti tihlayile and sisetatingeta Mnguni. We are in a campaign to add our shops. So inyama sembiveni maswati asatayidla. Siyatfolakala ke nakuma social media platforms, sikhona ka Facebook, Instagram, TikTok sikhona, LinkedIn sikhona, YouTube and our website. So emaswati can tap into those spaces and actually learn and understand ukuthi le nyama lesithi equality sisho kuthini.
And it's very affordable, I believe.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I did want to ask about, some of the prices, the promotional price that you normally have, but maybe a conversation for another day. Konsekelo Dlamini, the marketing officer, MBVeni, Eswatini Meat Industries, they are promising you a traceable product line here with their farm to fork traceability code, as well as their theme with which they premise this conversation in wake up to quality. As you wake up this morning, indeed, wake up to quality. You will visit their nearest stores, and indeed, you're going to make your meal times special, as they always commentate. Let's go for a net break.
Welcome to Eswatini Lifestyle. This is your ultimate guide to the entertainment, to the lifestyle and the culture of Eswatini.
Eswatini Lifestyle. Eswatini Lifestyle.
Eswatini Lifestyle.
From 6:30 to 7 p.m. On Eswatini TV, Sibuko Semaswati.
On Eswatini TV, Sibuko Semaswati.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi
abaresearche bafunze.
Being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kulula.
nathi kufuna sente ukukhiqiza lokusembili.
All right, we are teetering towards the end of our program this Tuesday morning, and as we wrap it off, let us look at this address where the Security Council was making an address at the open debate where Antonio Guterres called for a critical overhaul of United Nations peace operations to try and ensure that they remain effective amid this rising global instability. The warning that terror and extremist groups, organized crime, the weaponization of new technologies, as well as the effects of climate change are all testing our capacities to respond. Those are his exact words, and we get a chance to listen to him now.
Operations safeguard people and communities in some of the most desperate places on Earth. These operations comprise both peacekeeping operations and special political missions. Their work ranges from early warning to preventive diplomacy, from peacemaking to verifying peace agreements to protecting civilians, from negotiating ceasefires to helping parties implement them on the ground, to electoral support and observer missions. Collectively, these operations represent a critical tool at this Council's disposal to maintain international peace and security in a variety of contexts. Since the first special political mission and peacekeeping operation were deployed in 1948, our peace operations have grown, adapted, and evolved. Time and again, they allow us to mount tailored responses that have saved lives, reduced violence, prevented the expansion and spillover of deadly conflicts, and stopped atrocities. Peace operations are designed not only to be an effective example of multilateralism in action, but a cost-effective one. At their best, they show how when the UN comes together to address challenges, the burden is diminished on individual countries alone. But as we all know, peace operations face serious barriers that demand new approaches. Wars are becoming more complex and more deadly. They last longer and are more enmeshed in global and regional dynamics. Negotiated settlements have been harder to achieve. Meanwhile, our peace operations are confronted with a complex interplay of threats, many of which do not respect national borders. Terror and extremist groups, organized crime, the weaponization of new technologies, and the effects of climate change are all testing our capacities to respond. And I regret to say, geopolitical divisions are undermining peace. The bilateral and multilateral arrangements that for decades have managed tensions and maintained stability are eroding. Violations of international law, human rights, and the UN Charter are rampant, seemingly without consequence. Trust is in short supply among and within countries and regions. All of these challenges and more throw fuel on the fires of conflict. And meanwhile, our peace responses are struggling. We see a persistent mismatch between mandates and available resources. And we see increasing differences of views, including in this Council itself, around how peace operations should work, under what circumstances, with what mandates they should be deployed, and for how long. Excellencies, this is a grim diagnosis, but we must face facts. The good news is that, through the Pact for the Future, Member States committed to working to adapt peace operations for the future. This is an important opportunity to gain a shared understanding of what makes peace operations successful, what is hindering their effectiveness, and what new models we can use to make them more adaptable, flexible and resilient, while recognizing the limitations in situations where there is little or no peace to keep. My recent proposals to you in the context of Haiti are a good example. We must keep working for a political process, owned and led by the Haitian people, that restores democratic institutions through elections. And the UN has a clear role to play in supporting stability and security while addressing the root causes of the appalling crisis. The UN stands ready to assume responsibility of the logistical and operational expenditures, including transportation, medical capabilities and support for the national police, that can support an enhanced international force by member states that is able to confront the gangs in Haiti and create conditions for peace. And the salaries of the force are paid through the trust fund that already exists. This is a good example of how we can design a tailored and collective approach to peace operations in an extremely complex and dangerous environment. Other examples of adapting our peace operations include UNIFIL, which recently developed an adaptation plan to support the parties to uphold their obligations under Resolution 1701. And our operations in Abyei, Sudan, where we reconfigured our peace operations into a multinational force. We also increasingly see the enormous benefits of strengthening cooperation with regional and sub-regional organizations. Security Council Resolution 2719 is an important example. This breakthrough has lifted our partnership with the African Union to a new level as we work to establish peace enforcement missions under the responsibility of the African Union, supported by the United Nations. We are now working actively across our two secretariats to meet the vision of the resolution, and I urge Council members to fully support this work. Excellencies, it's time to build on these examples and continue adapting our peace operations for current and future challenges. Work is now underway to review all forms of peace operations as requested by Member States in the Pact for the Future. The review will aim to critically examine these tools and propose concrete recommendations to make them fit for today. This will include extensive consultations with Member States and others to inform and inspire recommendations. The review will build on the analysis presented in the new Agenda for Peace. It will be informed by the first comprehensive study of the history of special political missions in the 80 years of the United Nations, which will be released soon. And it will reflect the Pact's call to ensure that peace operations are engaged at the earliest possible stage in planning transitions with host countries, UN country teams, and local and regional groups. The review also aligns with the Pact's call to this Council to ensure that peace operations are guided by clear and sequenced mandates that are realistic and achievable within viable exit strategies and transition plans. And it will draw on the discussions taking place in preparation for the peacekeeping ministerial in Berlin in May, focusing on the future of peacekeeping. Excellences,
throughout, we will hold extensive consultations to capture as wide a spectrum of views as possible and to benefit from worldwide expertise, from member states, host states, troop and police contributing countries, and financial leaders, to regional organizations, civil society, and academia, and our own leaders and experts within UN peace operations and the Secretariat. And the review will, of course, help inform our efforts through our UN at 80 initiative to find efficiencies and improvements across our work in light of the continued funding challenges we face as an organization. Excellencies, today's open debate provides a vital opportunity for the Council to share perspectives and ideas to inform the review process. I urge all members to support it. And I call on this Council to continue working to overcome divisions and disagreements around peace operations and to build the unified and consistent political support our peace operations and the men and women who conduct them need and deserve. Thank you.
And that's it, the end of our Tuesday edition of Kusile Breakfast Show. Thank you for staying with us. Hope we'll see you again tomorrow. Do tune into the Market View program at 2 p.m. this afternoon. Have a good day. Bye-bye.